Hello, and thank you for joining us as we discuss an important opportunity for the future of Westfield Public Schools. The upcoming bond referendum and budget vote on April 15th will play a significant role in determining how we invest in our district's facilities and resources to support the continued success of our students. Our panel today will provide an overview of the referendum, explaining how these potential investments could impact our schools and community. Our goal is to share clear, factual information so that you can make an informed decision. We appreciate your interest in this important topic and thank you for taking the time to listen to this discussion. We will begin the conversation with Dr. Tiffany Jacobson, principal of our Lincoln Early Childhood Learning Center. Westfield Public Schools is just one of a few school districts across the state without full-day kindergarten. Bond Question 2 seeks funding to build and renovate the space needed at each elementary school to implement a full-day kindergarten program. Hello, Dr. Jacobson, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Dr. González.
For the purpose of our conversation, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your experience as an early childhood educator?
Sure. So I entered the profession 22 years ago, right out of college, started as a middle school teacher. About 11 years ago, I became a curriculum supervisor, and that was my first experience working with early childhood learners. And so I was able to oversee curriculum, instruction, assessment programming for our little ones, and about 5 years ago I took over as the principal of the Lincoln Early Childhood Center.
And it's great having you there. And since you've been there and over the years, what changes have you seen regarding the balance required between academics and less structured learning?
I would say over the course of the past 20 years, there have been 3 significant shifts in how society views kindergarten. I would say certainly there's more dual working families, and so kindergarten, full-day kindergarten, has become more of a utility than something that people are just kind of seeking out. I think the second thing that I would point to is the age of accountability that started in the early 2000s. And so with an emphasis on state testing to kind of oversee the quality of education going on from grades 3 to 12, we saw that kind of trickle down into the early grades. The final thing I'll point to is at around the 2013-14 time period, there was an influx of grant money that came into New Jersey to fund full-day pre-K. And as you could imagine, that then necessitated greater need for full-day kindergarten. And that was predominantly in underserved districts, but it did trickle out to surrounding communities as well.
Great, thank you. And in what ways do you notice this shift having an impact on kindergarten?
Yeah, so for communities like Westfield that offer half-day, it doesn't mean that a place like Westfield doesn't cover as much as a full day. It means that it's compressed and accelerated. And so all of the academic mandates are addressed. However, there is not sufficient time for the important skills by way of socialization, exploratory incidental play. And so we know that those 2 pieces are critical for building independence, resilience in our learners, and also critical thinking and the ability to generalize and apply skills in a broad range of areas.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now let's move over to Rob Benacchio. Rob Benacchio, as our board president and a parent in the community, full-day kindergarten has gotten a lot of attention. However, the board and the district have developed a bond referendum that is much broader. So can you tell us more about some of the other projects that are included in the referendum?
Sure. The full-day kindergarten, obviously an extremely important part of the district's overall future makeup, but the other buildings and the other facilities in our district have some significant needs as well. Start with mechanicals. Our heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems are nearing the ends of their useful life. We have space issues as well. We have students who are being educated in spaces that really not so much appropriate for those spaces. We need additional small group space for students for learning. Additional small group space will also help bring students who maybe have special needs or some special educational needs who we have to send out of district because we don't have the space to keep them here or to host the programs that would benefit them, will help bring them back into district. So some of the additions that we're seeing, or proposing, I guess I should say, in the referendum would go to add that. Also part of the, I guess what will be the first question of the referendum, is a significant renovation and upgrade to the theater here at the high school, and additional multi-purpose space both at Franklin and Jefferson schools, which are our largest elementary schools.
You described a lot of projects we've been talking about, full day K, and a lot of this conversation had occurred well before my arrival as superintendent and even your role as board member and board president. Why has it finally moved to a public vote?
Right now we have an opportunity going to a referendum to get some aid back from the state for these projects as well. So for example, the mechanicals are a significant portion of the referendum dollars that we'll be spending, almost 30%. And that's just for the heating, the vents, the air conditioning. And I forgot even before to mention upgrades to restrooms as well in each of the schools. And that may be actually the best example of why it's time to go through this now. We are, and have been, making upgrades to restrooms in our schools. The upgrades have been fantastic, but they've been at an extremely slow pace. Right? You can only do a couple of them every year with the existing budget funds that we have and with some of our capital improvement funds. Going to referendum helps us accelerate those projects, do them all in one shot in a shorter span of time, but also get aid back from the state to help offset the costs of those. And that kind of debt service aid just is not available when you're taking these projects and doing them as part of your operating budget or as part of your capital projects.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Rob, and thank you for your service as board member and board president. So moving on, we have Patty Ramos, our school business administrator. Thank you for joining us. The April 15th ballot will have 3 questions related to the operating budget and bond referendum. Can you describe the difference between the district operating budget and bond funding?
Sure. So our operating budget covers the costs year to year for operating our district. 80% of that budget is spent on staff and benefits because that's what our district is. It's the children and the staff that educate them. So we're not able to put away enough money in that budget to do these large-scale referendum projects. In order to replace all of the HVAC across the district, it would take us possibly 20 years to get into each classroom, each building, and do that. And it's also important to note, as Rob mentioned, there is state aid that comes with these projects. So by doing it through a bond referendum, if we did it in our operating budget, we're paying 100% of the costs. We're not getting anything back from the state. So again, our operating budget is really the year to year. A bond referendum allows us to go out and bond the money needed for these projects, and we repay it over the course of 30 years. So we would pay principal and interest over the course of 30 years on them.
Great. So on the topic of that state aid that you referenced, can you just tell us a little bit more about how debt service aid helps to offset the impact of this?
Yes. So for Westfield residents, this is one of the few times that taxpayers can get some money back from the state that they've paid in. And what it is anything that's renovation, we get 40% of the cost back from the state as debt service aid. So we issue the full amount of the bonds, and then over the course of the life of the bonds, they contribute 40% of the bond principal and interest payment back to the Westfield taxpayers. So it's a significant amount of money that you'll be getting back, $57 million approximately off the total cost of the project. But in the questions, we will ask for the total amount of the projects because we have to bond that amount. And then we will get the state aid each year over the next 30 years back. For additions, we do get a smaller amount of money, so that's why you'll notice on the questions that question one of the bond referendum has a larger amount, $55 million of debt service aid, because that's where all the renovations, as Rob said, the bathrooms, the HVAC, classroom renovations are all in that first question. Question 2 is just the kindergarten question, and that is more of additions. So the state funds that at a smaller percentage.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Pam. So Pam Clarke is a publishing executive, a former educator, and a parent. So thank you for joining us as well. And why don't you tell us about yourself and your family?
Yeah, thanks for having me. My family and I moved here to Westfield in 2012 and had our children in 2014 and 2018. Aviva is a 5th grader at Wilson Elementary, and Noah's in 1st grade at Wilson. And I've been actively involved in the Wilson PTO and other areas of the community. And I first started out as a teacher through Teach for America, and I taught high school history in the Bronx for 3 years.
And as a former educator, what's your perspective on all of the referendum proposals?
When I think about it from an educator perspective, when I started with my students in 10th grade, their average reading level was in 3rd grade. And so I really had to teach history through literacy. And so just have seen the impact of the amount of time on task in the lower elementary grades and how important that is, even once you get to high school.
Tiffany, Rob, Patty, Pam, thank you all. And thank you for taking the time to watch our panel discussion on the upcoming bond referendum and budget vote. We hope the information shared has helped clarify the key details and potential impact of the referendum on our schools and community. As you consider this important issue, we encourage you to explore all the available information to make an informed decision on April 15th. For more details, including a tax impact estimator, school-by-school breakdowns of the proposed projects, ballot language, and frequently asked questions, please visit our portal at westfieldnjk12.org/vote. Thank you again for your time and interest in this important conversation.